name is William Feliciano, and this is a code review for CS 499 Capstone. I'm showcasing here my CS 360 project, which is an inventory management app. And I am going to explain how I will convert this app that it's tied to the Android ecosystem into a full stack application that will leverage a centralized API and use another web client to support other non-Android platforms. So I will do this in a second. I will show you uh, what enhancements I'm going to be doing, but right now I'm going to do a little demonstration of what the app has and how the app is going to be enhanced. So here at the first time, the permissions are denied. So we're requesting an SMS permission to send the user of the application an SMS notification as a test uh, first, and also if the items in their inventory reach a level 0 when editing them, then the user will get a text notification saying that that item has no inventory left. So here we're going to send the text message. This will jump us to the registration page. I'm going to step out of this app for a second and go to the main app of the emulator. And here we can see one of the test messages that the inventory management system says, like send. So let's go back to the simple inventory. I'm going to test with test.com, and I'm going to showcase a password TST3. If you don't provide valid data, this form is valid. So let's test it out. This will be valid. And if I don't provide any password, you will see that the password is required. So here, let's put in test 123. Let's put here the @ sign, and you're going to be able to register. You're going to be greeted to an empty list because you don't have any items. You just registered. So you can, for example, say you have some pens, say you have 4, and you can add them. And the application also lets you edit the item. You can say, for example, that the item reaches the 0. I think the way the application data is right now, I found a bug that I had left in the code. So it won't let me, it did let me put 0. I kind of fixed it. So let's test the message. See, it was the pen item. So here you see no more pen left in stock. Okay, so you did receive the text message. The item was updated. So now let's just add another item like notebook. Let's say you have 5, and let's delete one. And you can see you can delete all the applications, all the items in the inventory as well. So I'm going to stop here and just start talking about the enhancement plans I'm going to make. So the enhancements have to meet several categories. The first category is software engineering and design. And for the software engineering and design, I am going to select an enhancement that will convert this code, which is local to this web app. It has a local uh, SQLite database that uses this application that holds all the data. Here you can see the SQL to create the tables and to manipulate the data. And what we're going to do is this design is very restrictive. If a user had another Android phone and wanted to connect to the same database, they wouldn't be able to connect to the same database because each database will be local to each installation per phone of the user. So if the user had two phones and he installs the application in phone A and they lost, and they try to get the same data that they input in phone A in phone B will have a separate whole inventory list. So by removing the database from the application and making a centralized web API, we will be able to share data across devices, and this will help me showcase my design aspects and software engineering because I will be developing an API that will be scalable, testable, and deployed to the Azure cloud. And this will help me showcase my domain of modern software design and engineering techniques to produce a centralized cloud API, which will be highly scalable and available so that the Android application may use it through the use of HTTP requests. And also, the web client that I plan to do as my second enhancement will be able to use this application for the other devices that are non Android. For converting this simple inventory management application into a full stack application, I will um, create another web application built with React, which will allow uh, cross-platform application capabilities, and this will leave behind the Android platform restriction. And this is what I'm planning to do on Enhancement 2. Since Enhancement 2 has to deal with algorithms and data structures, I will be using a table instead of a list of items like here, because it makes more sense to use a list of items here in the in the in the mobile client, but in the desktop, in the web client, I will be using, you can see here a list of these uh, items here. But in the web application, I will be using a table, and this table will have sortable, it will be sortable by either quantity or names. And this table will be using uh, a merge sort algorithm, which will showcase recursive algorithms knowledge as long as merge sort capabilities. And it will allow me also to demonstrate other things with the web API and the communication. I will be using a library called TanStack Query to be able to cache the HTTP request. And the caching means that it will, if you make a request to a certain endpoint and retrieve the list of items, if you were to do a request again, it will check first on the cache to check if that request was done prior. And it will, instead of making a new request, it will provide the data that was stored in the cache. And if the data becomes stale by any means, like if you update or delete an item, then the data will be refetched. And that will allow me to showcase caching mechanisms as well as showcasing my front end development skills. And finally, we have the category 3, which is the databases. And I will use two databases. Um, I'm going to use a local database to store only the phone number because the current limitation of this application is that it uses a hard coded value for the SMS notification. And we can see this here in the simulate text. We're using the emulator number, which is a dummy number. I'm going to store a real user number in the Android app so that we can send real text messages to people. And also, I'm going to leverage the MongoDB database So I will showcase my skills with SQL as well as NoSQL databases, and that will cover my enhancement 3 for the category databases. So now I'm going to start my code review of my application, and let's go over what is required. So for the structure of the application, it's saying that I need to check if my code completely and correctly implement the design. And as you have seen, the mobile application works fully, and it works as expected. So this uh, structure question is fulfilled. Does the code conform to any pertinent coding standards? And yes, I use Java standards as well as Android standards to create the code structure. And we can see other files like, let's see, the session manager. We can see here the comments for every line, and it showcases a well-formed structure and pattern, and we can conform to that. So is the code well structured, consistent in style, and consistently formatted? This is where I think I could do an improvement, because like you can see here in this code, the code leaves sometimes extra lines for some items, and others it doesn't do it. Like, for example, here at the beginning, this could have been placed like that. So each line was completely at a space, so it's more clear to read and understand the code. And you can see this could be implemented in other classes as well, so that each line has its own space and it's not too cluttered, too stuck together, and it's not easy to read. So this is some improvement I can do in this, along with the enhancement I propose. uh, are there any leftover stops or test routines in the code? No. And are there any uncalled or unneeded procedures or any unreachable code? No. This IDE, specifically the Android Studio, leverages the IDEs of JetBrains, which use a very good AI that if the code is not reachable, they will uh, use some opacity on the text to let you know that that code is unreachable. And if we go over each file, you can see that every line has no, any line does not have any opacity. You can see that every line has bright text color. It's not opaque. So we can clearly see here that the application does not have any unreachable code. And here is the model. And as you can see clearly here in this classes, there's no clear indication. Let me space it out a little better so you can see a little better. So you can see that there is no unreachable code. The only code that looks a little opaque is the comments themselves, but there is no code that is not a comment, that it's opaque. And here we have a few classes left, and we can see that all the code is valid and can be reached. There are constants and the add item activity here. All the branches are well structured and they are reachable. Okay, so let's move to the other ones. Can any code be replaced by calls to external reusable components or library functions? No. I think the only library function we use here was in the database helper, and the code was correctly implemented to use the SQLite uh, open helper to, so we could interface Java with SQL code. Okay. And are there any blocks repeated code that could be condensed into a single procedure? Um, I think my application is very consistent and rarely, sorry, and rarely uses any any type of duplication. But if I were able to find any duplication in the process where I'm enhancing this mobile application to use the HTTP request, I will be able to enhance that. So, is the storage use efficient? Well, the storage is used efficiently in the sense that the the code for the SQL database integration uses efficient queries, and there are no errors in the SQL. So our symbolic use rather than magic number, constants, or strings. I would say the only places where I did use some sort of magic strings are here where I could extract this to a constant, or like I proposed in my newest enhancement for the part 3 of the category of databases. I can store this number in an SQL database localized to each phone, because I don't want this data, which will be proprietary or private data for the individual, to be shared with my API that's on the web in the cloud. So this could be a thing that could be extracted, and instead of being here and in the edit item, which is here when where we are trying to send the low stock SMS, this could be stored in the local database using SQLite, and just it's just extracted via SQLite query. And are there any modules excessively complex and should be restructured or split into multiple routines? I believe everything is localized into each individual file according to each individual screen, and there are no files that are excessively long or any more or very complicated, so I won't think so. Is the documentation of the code clear? As you see all throughout the application, there are comments. Some places have more than others. I think I could make that more consistent and have pretty much all the lines covered, uh, all the lines that are required to be covered, because some lines are auto um, descriptive and don't need commenting. And are all comments consistent with the code? I will I will say so. All the comments have a similar structure, and all the variables properly defined with minimum meaningful and consistent names and are clear. Yes, the the variables, as you can see at the top of each file, are consistently named. The only place where you could actually fear what till means, except for example here, which stands for text input layout. But if you hover over the variable, it will show you that is a text input layout. So it's easy to comprehend what the TIL means. Maybe I could add an underscore, but I'm using camel casing here to uh, to stick to the style of the Java naming convention of variables. Are the variables have proper type consistency or casting? I would say so. There are very few castings, if any, in this application. All the code are pretty much the same class that they should be, or all the items in the code. And are there any redundant or unused variables? You can see here that the IDE says how many usages each variable has, and there are no file that has 0 usages for the variables. So you can see every variable is used uh, every in every file. They have the different usage. There are no unused variables. Does the code avoid completing in the arithmetic operation? Does the code avoid arithmetic operations? There are no arithmetic operations, nor rounding errors, or greatly different magnitudes, or there are no divisors to 0 or noise tested. So the application does not deal with arithmetic operations at all. There, there are as far as I know, the only code that could be a loop is not a loop because it uses this syntax in the inventory adapter, that it uses this syntax called inflate that will essentially expand the list of items, but it doesn't, it does so under the hood. There are no explicit um, loops in this code. All the branches of the code are well structured, and code is always reachable. There are no uh, places where the code has unreachable branches or if else clauses. So the code are consistent. There are no cases where there are needs of a base case or anything. The loop termination conditions are not an issue here. Are indexes or subscript properly initialized just prior to the loop? Like I said, there's no loop. And statements that are enclosed within loops be placed outside of loops. So no. Does the code in the loop avoid manipulating the index variable or using it upon exit from the loop? No, there is no case like that. And in case of defensive programming, there are indexes, pointers, or subscript tested against array records or file out of bounds. No, this application does not have any instance where this would be valid or applicable. And are imported data and input argument tested for validity or completeness? Let's see here in the register, you can see that the validation of the inputs is performed. So I would say that these inputs are tested. The password must be required and they must be of a certain length. The email must be valid and it should be required. The same with the sign in activity. You will have some little validation here. You can see that email is required, enter your valid email, and the password is required. So yeah, the code does that. Are all output variables assigned? Uh, I think so. There are no code that is not used by the different screens that are not in place. So I think so. I am sure they are correctly utilized. So are there correct data operated? Are the correct data operated on each statement? Yes. Is every memory allocation deallocated? Well, the this language that we're using is Java, which is garbage collected. So I don't need to explicitly deallocate any memory. Are there timeouts or error traps used for external device accesses? There are currently no external device access to this application. There will be communication to external APIs when I migrate my uh, category C databases enhancement. because this mobile app will talk to an external cloud API. Are all files checked for existence before attempting access? I don't utilize files in this project. And are all files and devices left in the correct state upon program termination? We could see here the database helper class that we can uh, we have like the try catch finally loops here in the register. I could maybe implement those try catch and finally on each of the methods, but then again, I'm not going to be using uh, those resources because I'm going to be using an external API for the data handling. So this wouldn't apply. So this is my project, my CS project that I will be enhancing in CS 499. I will be creating, let's recap, I will be creating a centralized web API hosted on Azure that will take care of the data being able to be shared across devices. And I will create, as my second enhancement, I will create a web client, which will allow me to support other platforms other than Android. And that web client will have use of algorithms and data structures for caching and for sorting. And on the enhancement 3, I'm going to be able to utilize SQLite uh, database for storing the phone number of the user directly on their phones. And I will make sure that every instance the database is open, it's correctly closed, the connections and everything. And I will create a schema that will be valid in the MongoDB NoSQL language, which is document based. And this is what I will be doing across my 3 enhancements. It's going to be converting this CRUD application into a full stack application with all modern technologies and standards.